All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the blog. It is almost about 9:58 early on this Thursday morning. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Goode. Another day where we can avoid storm talk. We may be able to for a while, to be honest. There is still some noise showing up for next week when it comes to the thunderstorm chance. I'll go through where we stand on that coming up here in just a second. But what an awesome setup. Very, very pleasant evenings we've had. We're getting spoiled with this. We've went through this a few times in the past couple of decades. Last year, I remember we had a little bit of a cool spell where we got into a really hot setup for the end portion of summer. This reminds me a lot. 2009, I feel like was similar to this. 2004 certainly was like this. In fact, I remember in 2004, in August, working down at WBKO in Bowling Green. I was doing the morning show there, and we had low temperatures in the 40s into Bowling Green. And I remember doing the morning show live that morning wearing a parka. I know weather people are so dramatic. Anyway, but it stood out to me. I remember that because of how unusual it was. And really, I have not felt anything to that degree since about 2004. So it's been a good 20 years since we've had a nice stretch like this for a break in the summer pattern. Now, you may be asking, well, what happened after that in 2004? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that is where things got a little more interesting. We ended up with fairly mild weather until a switch just flipped basically by mid to late fall. And then we ended up with a cold and snowy December. And we basically got snow on the ground much of the time. And 2010 also reminds me of this. In 2010, we had the same setup where we had snow on the ground, light snow. I'm talking like half inch to an inch, but it didn't go anywhere because we were just cold the entire time. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the repeat. I haven't gotten to that point yet in the forecast for the winter outlook. I'm just saying that weather patterns do like to indeed repeat themselves. So sometimes when we see those signals that show up, they get our attention, and we just see if we can see more similar signals or not. And I'll be working on that over the next few weeks. All right. But I thought I'd share a little bit of tidbit for today. All right. Several things I want to go over to today. First off, perhaps the most important, fall, 31 days away. But does it really matter now at this point? I mean, we've already felt it. So it's like, yeah, okay. You can show up in 31 days or not. We're at least getting a taste of it. We know we're going into a heat wave here soon. Just come back. Just come back. Don't abandon us. These countdowns make me nervous sometimes. Sometimes they line up just right, and sometimes they just count down to no change in our weather, right? So, but either way, at least we do have some changes coming our way. September is one of those fun months because you end up with sorry about that. I thought I was going to have to sneeze. I didn't want you guys to hear or see that on camera. All right. I don't want to end up on a blooper reel. Okay. All right. 31 days and counting. Days are getting shorter. You guys know that, right? Obviously. So, but we don't have to worry about setting our clocks back until the first weekend of November. So plenty of time. Another morning in the 40s across the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes area of the country, mainly into your valleys, any area that's certainly sheltered away from any type of wind. That cooler air just settles into pockets into the terrain. So you end up with a pretty chilly setup in the Ohio River Valley. I believe here in Louisville, we were at 57. My house, I got to about 54 this morning. Coolest I was able to find in not only the state of Kentucky, but it happened to be in Wave Country. Now it's in Meade County again at 44 degrees. So you see 47 into North Vernon this morning, even a 48 in Tell City, several spots right at 50. So another chilly one. But this particular wave of cool mornings like this is done. Now we begin the climb starting today. Now it's still going to be a pleasant night tonight. Don't get me wrong. Tomorrow morning, it's still going to be very pleasant out. I think we're going to have a lot of 50s. I just think, well, starting tomorrow, we should get rid of all the 40s that were showing up on the map. So there'll be 50s or higher. And then eventually, as we get into tomorrow night, it'll be a little closer to 70 for overnight lows. So, yeah, things are going to be changing. So if you've had a chance to give the AC a break, get ready. It's about ready to build back up again here very, very soon. So As always, our energy bills seem to balance out throughout the year. Okay, live view right now. This is from our Skytrack camera at Huber's Orchard and Winery. Oh boy, about to be your time, right? And I'm sure the weather as of late has had you guys busy just because everyone's thinking of pumpkin spice and trying to find pumpkins. But still a bit early, right? Still a bit early. Got a few more weeks, and then everyone will be in full swing there. All right, the drought status. All right, this update's on Thursday. So today being Thursday, it updated. Interestingly enough, it actually improved our status for the first time, the most dramatic way that we've had in the past few weeks. It's been lingering with a drought showing up, even though we've had a lot of rain, and then the rain stops, and then the drought actually improves. The way these things are done is can be a little frustrating. But anyway, we really won't get a true reality of what we're going through right now until next week's update on Thursday. But given the idea, I don't see a lot of rain between now and the next update. And of course, the ground will get sampled on Tuesday of next week. Certainly, I'm not expecting any rain by then. So we should see this expand. The only reason why you're not going to see it be a fairly widespread, rapid look here to that map is only just because the idea that we are entering the dry season. So that is, of course, factored in too. When you get into longer dry spells, you normally would see that as you get a little closer to September anyway. Weather view shows that certainly it's got a little worse in Ohio and West Virginia, but a good chunk of the country needs some rainfall. And Florida has been lucky, and part of Texas to have to deal with the tropical systems we've had this year. I don't know if lucky is the right word. I mean, it's been causing a disaster, right, and problems all the way in the Northeast. So the tropical systems have been able to get a lot of the bigger beach areas in better shape than what they were, and a lot of the MCSs that we just went through the Midwest that we had in July also took care of a lot of the drought that was trying to build in the Midwest in the Ohio River Valley. So there have been weather elements that have been helping us out this summer to keep it from being a completely covered map from one end to the other. But as I'm alluding to, this should expand a bit more over the next week or two. The tropics are far from done. You got to keep in mind the hurricane season does not technically end until the last day of November. And sometimes around here, like especially in 2005, you go all the way to the winter season and you have to still deal with hurricanes. So we'll see what happens down the road. It only takes one tropical system to come in through the Gulf and get into our flow up in here, and things change dramatically. Doesn't happen too often once you get into this late in the season, but it can. So we'll monitor that in the coming weeks. But right now, there's nothing that I see that is raising not only one of my eyebrows, but both of them. So let's get into the current radar, and we do have some showers there in Florida, a few showers in the Midwest, back to the West Coast there, the inner mountains there of the Rockies. Fairly quiet though, really tame setup across the country. So what's the game plan? Well, today is the day we start to reverse our cooling pattern, begin to warm up, but still below normal. So it's nothing too dramatic, right? We should get above 80 for the first time in a couple of days here in Louisville. And notice what happens as we get into, not so much on Friday, but over the weekend. Painted there the instability in the red. Notice the instability builds where your better moisture is starting to build into the upper Midwest. That is where you have not only a better flow of moisture coming in from the Gulf in that area. It's kind of wrapping around. I'll show you a better view in this in a second, wrapping around us into the Midwest. But there is a lot more, as you saw from the MCSs that hit that area, a lot more green. So a lot more moisture from the plants gets thrown into the atmosphere, so a lot more fuel. We are drying out to the south of us, so pretty dry through here overall. And that's the reason why we're just not seeing a ton of moisture. And the flow coming into that area is not a direct south flow from the Gulf of Mexico. So it's not a perfect alignment yet to get moisture back into our area. Here's a wider view, and I think this shows it a little easier. Again, highlighting the areas where you see the green, that's the rainfall, and then the gold and the reds are the instability areas, the Cape, the fuel that are listed. You can tell where we got the flow coming in and the Gulf right into Texas, and then you've got the Midwest, several lows moving through here, kicking out some showers and storms. What we will likely see over the next 10 days is the easterlies have been very strong as of late. I mean, unusually strong into the Caribbean. They typically are from that direction anyway this time of the year. You got your easterly winds, the trade winds, then you get into the westerlies located basically at our latitude. And what you basically do, because one is flowing one direction, one the other, is you end up spinning the atmosphere, and you end up with a high pressure that forms in a clockwise fashion. It kind of begins to spin as a result of the two wind flows on north and south of it there. So you end up with a high parked right over us, and that is our protector, if you will, and keeping us from a lot of the showers and thunderstorms that could move into the area. But the wind flow with a high over us like this, again, being clockwise, you really take the flow off the Gulf, and you take the moisture, you pick it up into Galveston, heading toward Austin, San Antonio, and then you bring it into the Midwest this way. It's a lot easier to just go straight up 65 into wave country to get our better moisture in your humidity, showers, and your thunderstorms. And that's typically what we would face as a south to north type of flow. But it's not that way, at least not yet. It is very much a sharp angle. So that's another reason why, too, that we are going to heat up, but we're not going to get a ton of moisture, at least rapidly, coming into play yet. But as we get into next week and next week evolves, we will have building heat and humidity. The heat index is likely to go over 100 here in just a few days. So get ready for that. As far as that MCS type of setup we talked about yesterday for the upper Midwest, mainly Tuesday into part of Wednesday, it's still there. There are still hints of that. The signal is actually lower today than what it was yesterday. So confidence remains low on this. I think we've only been flirting with the idea of about a 10 to 20% chance at all on whether or not storms can form. As I was talking about yesterday, I mean, they've, MCSs especially, but complexes and storms in general, they get caught into a wind flow. They want better moisture ahead of them where they're going to survive. And as I mentioned, they're traveling in an area where the wind flow is not bringing all that moisture for them to eat on. So therefore, they just fall apart. So there's still a lot of uncertainty on whether or not anything can get all the way down to the Ohio River Valley. I would say if there's any spot that may have a better opportunity than others, it would be those in Indiana versus Kentucky. You'll be a little bit closer to that flow that's going all the way right. You can almost track it here in that red area flowing all the way around. You may be a little bit closer to that field of getting moisture back into the Ohio Valley just because of geography of where you're at. Otherwise, the heat will continue to build, mid to upper 90s heat index. I don't think right now it's going to get to heat advisory level, but I think it may get close. It may get close. I'm talking like 103, 104, something like that. Maybe that feels like temperature by early next week. So we're all going to be complaining about that. And no one's going to be showing memes and snapshots of this week. And like, remember when the good old days of last week? As we get toward the end of next week, that front is still showing up that wants to move in, that would set the stage for Labor Day weekend. Now, here's the problem. This low pressure is a fairly strong low moving through Canada. It does have a fairly strong front with it. That has not changed for the past several days, and the timing of that is roughly next Friday, okay? The problem that I'm seeing now with this particular system is that the wind flow is so much stronger across Canada. This section here, fairly strong with the wind flow. You get to the lower latitudes, the winds are fairly weak. So what happens is you end up with a low pressure dragging a front through, but the front itself, it tries to get through the Ohio River Valley, but it starts to just basically drag its feet because the wind flow is not pushing it as hard to the east as it is up here. I mean, look how much more to the east it is, a little closer to the northern part of the front. Here's a low up here into Canada, but it's already moving into Nova Scotia, while the tail of the front is still dragging through Texas. So it's basically just dragging a dumbbell, if you will, with a chain trying to get through sludge, if you will. So the ball and chain there just kind of drags along and it's trying to pull it, but it's not able to do anything. So that's why I don't know yet the timing of how that'll play out. That will certainly affect timing. It should cut down on any severe risk with a weaker forcing, not as much of an aggressive, rapid push of a front. I do think we get some rain and thunderstorms out of this, but I don't think we can go higher than 30% for right now until we get a better handle on what this front will do. Now, if this storyline plays out the way it's looking today on paper, then as this front moves on by, say next Friday, maybe into Saturday for Labor Day weekend, it won't take long. You see that little spike there of red into the front range of the Rockies. It won't take long to build back in a south flow that would aim much more of a south to north up 65, up I-55, heading into the Ohio River Valley. It'll be a little easier for that to happen right after Labor Day. So I'm hoping that we get the front end, get a nice drop in humidity, a cool few days for the Labor Day holiday, but then we'll get back into a much more of a tropical setup and perhaps some decent showers and storms. So maybe that'll help us in getting out in the drought. That's the way it's looking right now through at least mid-September is the storyline. After that, kind of a toss-up. Some modeling still is hitting hard on more of these cool shots dropping in. Some not as aggressive with that. We'll take it one step at a time. But that is how everything is looking today as an overall snapshot. So let's get into the 10-day and get to some of your questions or anything I can try to help answer for you guys. You can see there on the 10-day, by the way, we've got nearing 90 tomorrow, lower 90s this weekend. Upper 90s coming into play as we get into early next week, and we'll see how long that lasts. Once we get into the front, that'll arrive again about Friday. And depending on how much of a drag it has, if it can be a little more aggressive, then we're not going to get to 88 on Saturday. If the front drags, not only would the rain chance be a little higher than we see, but the temperature would be indeed back into the upper 80s there. So a lot of questions for the Labor Day holiday weekend. So hang tight. Be patient. Be patient. Good morning, Angela. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, Ashley. Never too early for pumpkin spice. Drinking. Oh, today's the day, right? For the Starbucks coffee. That's right. You know, I've never had that. Never had that. All right. Everyone seems okay. Yeah, Ohio does really need the rain. You're right, Sean. That area, north, and especially southeast Ohio. Ooh, it's getting bad. Getting bad. Laura, what is your feeling for pool weather? Ooh, well, that is a really good question. You know what? There's no doubt this upcoming pattern here is going to be great for pool weather. But once we get past Labor Day, you may get one small period where you could get into still be able to enjoy the pool. But I think those days are beginning to really wind down fairly quick there, Laura. So if you're debating on whether or not to shut the pool down or not for Labor Day, we'll take it one step at a time. Remind me next week when we're talking about this pattern, and we'll have a much better idea how that is trending there. Favorite coffee drink? Rose, my favorite coffee drink is anything that turns into a milkshake. I don't like the taste of coffee, but if it tastes like a milkshake, but yet still coffee, perfect. I like it. All right, final question real quick here. Michelle, anything on the first week of October yet? No, not quite yet. Not quite yet. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Hang tight. Almost festival season, so we're going to get a lot of those questions about events and tracking. The heat waves, droughts, and then the cool shots of air that start to come into play. And again, don't forget the tropics. The tropics are still going to be a narrative as the fall season takes place this year. So there's a lot of catalysts that could go wrong here in the outlook for the fall season. I mean, I'm looking at everything as a general pattern and talking about how we can get some cool shots of air. But the tropics, I do think also play a role. So how much of a role that will be for us, I don't know yet, but there's no doubt the ocean is quite warm right now. In fact, the Gulf of Mexico is in the 90s. So there's certainly a margin of error that can happen here for the extended. All right, guys, I got to run. I appreciate y'all as always. Get out there, try to enjoy this really nice weather. Enjoy your PSL today. And I'll be on a midday, and we'll go through these numbers again and kind of fine tune to see how things evolve. These chances for rain with MCSs, which again is a lower chance today than what it looked like yesterday. And then the front toward the end of next week is about our only hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, of saving us.